I like to think of sleep as the springboard for living a self-expressed life and a passionate life, right?
Yes,
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 yes.
yes.
Oh, this is major. It's like the next big thing. Come catch the wave, yeah. Yeah, watch what's happening. A force of nature. Hit 'em like lightning. Be the creator of the next big thing. We're the movers and shakers. We are the dreamers, the makers. We stand on top of equators. We are the limitless. Got the future, no papers. We are the innovators. We have the focus like lasers. You know we doing it big. Oh, this is major.
Welcome to the Compromised to Alchemized podcast with me, your host, Dr. Neil Bulchandani. I am in a conversation here on this episode with Mollie Eastman. She's a phenomenal expert on gratitude, awareness, and sleep. Most of you know her from her Sleep is a Skill podcast. You might also know her from other certain things that she's contributed to, which I'll read off some from her bio shortly. But we've actually had some fun collaborations or interactions where I was on her podcast, we did an Instagram live, and more. So it's been fun to get to chat and talk about our overlapping worlds. But, in some ways I actually found more overlapping in our shared interests or like some origin story when we got into the conversation. So it was really fun to get, I think it's like a 7,000 day stretch where she practiced gratitude, like a gratitude journal. And we got into a lot of good insight from her as an entrepreneur, as a person who she talks about the ways in which she realizes what she was doing that wasn't working that led to her insomnia, realizing that her sleep was a big problem, and then that led to her breakthrough, and that's led to her being such a phenomenal resource. She's been on many podcasts, many platforms. She has a bachelor's degree in communications and psychology. And yeah, it's really cool how she's got this behavioral change background, the Nonverbal Group, and also her husband who's continues to work with that. She also has, helped coach the world's top poker players. But also she's definitely collaborated with hotels, like luxury hotels and lifestyle brands. There's so many things that she has done. We'll definitely have these amazing links to some of those things, but also you just got a wealth of a library with her Sleep is a Skill podcast. So that's a conversation I think you're all going to enjoy. I need to get way better at my sleep rhythms, sleep health, all of those things. So from those things, I am a student learning. And then also we can just say that there's so much to the manual therapy part of what can help when anybody's dealing with these issues, which is where I come in. So we have a training. I have a training coming up in Santa Barbara next week. Wow, people are coming in, flying in, and it's the floor 4. That's my foundational floor of the mouth training for any kind of, you're going to be hearing this. It's any kind of person who helps and guides other people in healing. It is March 12th, 13th. That's Thursday, Friday here in Santa Barbara. And it's learning about not just the floor of the mouth, but how the whole body connects to it, and specifically these 4 regions, how to assess them, screen for them, work with them, and find this phase shift where the body goes into this wild, phenomenal, dramatic cascade effect where the lips and the cheeks and the palate shifts and then pterygoids loosen those jaw muscles, and then you get this widespread, diffuse freeing of tension through the whole body. And then you get a perception change also, where the body just turns to butter and the mind is more pliable. So Once I started seeing that phenomenon happen over and over and over again, I realized, oh yeah, this came out of the way that I helped people through airway and feeding issues, babies, kids, adults with, you know, issues that often pertain to narrow palate, narrow arches, and tongue tie, lip tie, cheek ties. And so it's really pivotal at helping people prepare or get relief there, or if anybody's headed into a tongue tie or a palate expansion procedure. I believe that what I'm doing is uh, a necessary examination in all cases. And now that I've got more people coming to learn the work, I think they're going to be the ones that in your areas can go and further the work too. So, but it's beyond that, right? TMJ, and it's headaches, and it's anybody who's had injuries on top of these issues that could be like concussions, and you can also have people with tight hamstrings, people with the inner thigh muscles that never loosen, people that, and there's some people who, like, they're like, I've never really stretched, and should I? And I say, yeah. However, if you can get the phase shift to happen through the floor four, you'll be way ahead, and you will not need to do as much. So and then I've got the next 2 days, the 14th, 15th is my advanced training. So I'll leave this short because I don't want to go on and on here, but it's an advanced training for those who want to stay on, or especially those who have taken my trainings before. You can come into it like that too, but it's advanced. And so it's manual therapy. There's a dentist taking the course too, though. And but usually you have some hands-on work that you might want to do. And so how do you go more in depth at applying the phase shift throughout the whole body? How do you work on the floor four with more depth? But more than that, how you get into understanding the hyoid, the sternum, diastasis, which is abs separation, relevant to working with all people, men and women, and even especially the neurodivergent cases, those. So it's really going to be great to dive in and leave people more equipped, more able to do more excellent work and get more and more and more in the field of in the zone of expertise and genius with what you do. So, okay, I'm going to leave it at that. Everybody tune in. Love to hear what you think about this episode, and enjoy.
This is major.
All right, Mollie, thanks so much for being with me on the Compromised to Alchemized podcast.
Yes, thank you for having me. We're twins. We are ready for this convo.
You in Austin, Texas, me in Santa Barbara, California. I know we've had at least an event we did, or something where we shared together online, but it was so awesome to have the time to hang out with you when you came with your husband. Very close by, Westlake Village, for an event he was doing.
Yes.
Got to go hang out for like a lunch, coffee, and
so nice.
Talk about life. So yeah, I'm just excited because as we were talking, I told you I want to hear more about your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
Before you delved into sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And
totally.
As we've spent time together in various ways, and especially in, like, you interviewed me on your podcast, which I really appreciate. We did an IG
so great.
I zoomed into one of your appointments, right? We had all these interactions.
Amazing.
And we started with our shared overlap in this field of sleep / airway health, right? That's kind of how we converged. You with knowing Dr. Zaghi, Renata Nama, amazing. I feel like now I found out we have so many more people in common that I didn't even know we had, which is really cool.
Such a small world in this world of sleep and airway. It's amazing.
And even, Biohacker Babes, is it Renee, right?
Yes.
Totally.
Love them.
So we have health, human optimization, etc. But I kind of was like, what I want to know about Mollie when, like, I know you've shared this. You've shared, because sleep is a skill, right? That is your movement, your podcast, your brand. People know you for this because people know that you've become not only an expert, and you have a company dedicated to this, but you have really helped so many, understand how to have optimal sleep. And So, but I know you talk about some of you were a serial entrepreneur even before then, and you were like, gotta stay up all night, and you were like, it's just the way it's gonna be. So I
Intense
know,
energy, that's for sure.
and even though I feel like so much wisdom has come from your journey, and I'll just say it because you've shared this on podcasts with
Yeah.
insomnia and how that led to your awakening, literally, and realization.
There's so many
Um,
puns.
I really want to dive into the brilliance of the intensity that led you to become a serial entrepreneur, because even though you had like the sleep wasn't something that you had that was an asset at that time for you and knowledge about that, yet so much that you were excelling in that I think is inspiring for people to know about. So could you just like tell me more? I really want to know what were how
Yeah.
did you delve into what was your first like successful endeavor, or like what got you into entrepreneurialism?
Yeah. Well, this is great because I feel like it's part of the story, because so essentially I went to school in Syracuse and studied in communications and rhetorical studies, which is just a fancy way to say looking at really the art of rhetoric. So rhetoric is defined as really the finding the available means of persuasion in any environment. And so looking at communication, and so that was partly actually how I met my husband because we looked at body language and nonverbal communication in that domain. So I went to just about every type of body language class in New York City because you're in New York City, so you can go to any class you want. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's tons of body language experts, and my husband was one of them. And we've been together now 15 years. And so that was kind of part of that journey because that was an area that initially I thought I was going to go into was creating kind of nonverbal communication pathway. So but before I got there, it was a period of discontent working in corporate world and having zero pull in, or connection to kind of that domain. Although it had its perks. I was in the middle of Manhattan. I had a bunch of assistants under me. I was traveling all the time. I was like schmoozing people. You would just take people out and about, and it was had the trappings of a path, and yet I was completely just miserable, just not having any level of passion there and feeling very off course. Um, so that's when I started investigating how can I create something for myself. And that was part of that journey was starting to almost from the Jobs approach. I don't know if anyone's heard of some of his kind of philosophy, like how he connected calligraphy when he just was so into art and what have you. And so he took
Okay.
a calligraphy course in college or maybe audited or what have you, but somehow calligraphy knowledge. And then it's like, how could that ever play into the real world? But because he had passion for it, ended up being part of what was in Mac and the fonts and made it kind of stand out amongst, dry, fontless PC. Anyway, so point is following your passion. And so I kind of plucked that idea. Um, and started going into all these directions of what I was interested in, and that was how I met Blake. And so I ended up leaving corporate world, started working with him and his company, the Nonverbal Group. And so the Nonverbal Group it's basically he continues to do large scale behavioral studies and looking and now using AI. So there's a whole look at behavior. So I was participating there, and then I started a couple different ventures. So one, I started Lecture Loft. So we had a large loft space in Chelsea, Manhattan. So then could host different people coming in there for their different live events. And it was beautiful because it kind of gave an opportunity for people to have a stage to share whatever they were passionate about. So had that for a while. Then I ventured into creating a gratitude app, and
Oh,
part of that was really interesting. So the longest streak of anything I've ever done in my life to date is for 2,500 days in a row. I sent a gratitude email to friends and family. And it was purely because of the fact that friends and family were on that list that I was consistent with it because it was the accountability factor of like, I don't want to break my word because I was numbering it every single day. And so, once you get to like, 2,222, you don't want to just stop. So doing that every single day. So the accountability piece was a component of what I was looking at with the app, because at the time, now it's shifted the landscape because this is years ago. But there weren't really any kind of social or shared gratitude platforms. And gratitude, so I started studying around gratitude, which was an interesting area that seems to have a bit of a contagion effect. So when you start talking about what you're grateful for, it seems to have kind of a impact on the listener. And everyone kind of gets a benefit, And then when you tell me what you're grateful for, I'm like, oh, well, that's great. I'm grateful that I heard that, and now I'm grateful, looking for what I'm grateful for. So the spillover kind of cool possibility of a pathway. So started venturing into that. While doing Lecture Loft and doing some of the, work with the Nonverbal Group. And what was really cool, I think you might know, I work with a lot of high stakes poker players. So part of the crossover there is that with Nonverbal Group, and one of my husband's companies is called Beyond Tell. So at the time, and this is all in the middle of Manhattan, and he started running the largest study ever conducted on poker players. So we had hundreds of poker players coming into that same loft space, that lecture loft space. And so then we would look at their nonverbals and break down sort of their body language throughout that. And what was really interesting there was that that allowed me to kind of apply some of that piece around behavior, and how we could look at that through the lens of at the table and your performance. So I say all that because I was juggling a lot of things at the time. And then I had always been fascinated by Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, back in the day, right? I still remember where I was when I read that. And so I'd always wanted to do sort of his philosophy around travel. And so when we're in the midst of all of this, at a certain point, once everything started going more online, then there was this opportunity, and especially with the gratitude app, then it's like, okay, we could become more mobile. So this is where we had the idea to put everything in storage and then start traveling. But at this point in the lead up to that, the amount of sort of just like everything I talk about now, I was not doing. Everything I talk about now of like,
Totally.
right, we're chatting about quantum biology and the rhythmicity of our days and sunrises and sunsets and winding down. I was doing none of that.
Right.
So then with a lack of balance, with a lack of a strong foundation, then put everything in storage. And then as a not seasoned traveler, I grew up with basically very little money in a trailer in Maine, to a 19-year-old mother, on welfare, just like not the background of a lot of travel and all that kind of muscle there. So when we did that, there's just a lot of instability paired with that, with the nature of entrepreneurship, which has its ups and has its downs. And so the level of stress that I then brought into that nomadic sort of lifestyle and time zone shifting and all of it kind of created this perfect storm for what happened of this period of insomnia. But I'll tell you also a little backstory is that part of why it landed as so life-changing for me is that I have very, very close family members that I've seen, deal with a lot of mental health issues and very severe mental health issues, schizophrenia, bipolar, et cetera, and a lot of pharmaceutical use and what have you. So when that period and that time for me with sleep occurred, it was particularly charged because then my fear was, oh no, is this like the moment that this is going to happen for me? It's in my genes, like kind of always like a fear that something like that could happen since it was so pervasive in our family. And so now I see the beauty of it today. At the time, I didn't quite see the silver lining, but it actually was one of the biggest gifts because the things on that journey, I had lots of interest around and passion, barring the corporate world. But there was interest, but there was a sense of like, it's not quite it. It's not quite it, and still being kind of like looking, juggling all these different cross disciplinary things, and sort of like one foot in, one foot into this other thing. Whereas once the piece around sleep came into the picture, and then the life-changing discovery for myself of, oh my God, like there's this whole world that I didn't know about when it came to circadian health, quantum biology, and my entire life shifted. Um, and it also felt like dodging a bullet because every, doctor I went to, this is overseas, in Croatia, Budapest, Italy, etc., Barcelona, and every doctor gave me some form of benzo or Z drug,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And sadly, we're still seeing a lot of that. And I don't think it's malicious or anything. I think it's just a systematic or systemic problem of, we don't know quite else what to do with you. So here we go. And so I feel like I dodged a bullet because I saw so much of what happened with my family members of also, going to people and asking for support or help. And unfortunately, just, a pill for an ill. And it doesn't always have to go like that by any means. And there's wonderful experts out there, but sometimes it can take some finessing. And if you don't know what to look for, you can find yourself, and I see it that every single day, people that have now found themselves on a track of decades of maybe being taken off track. So now there's gratitude for me of I know exactly where I was. I was in Paris when
Mhm.
it feels very extra to say Paris, but
Yeah.
I remember being in Paris and looking over the water and having this and literally like shaking my husband's hand that I was going all in on supporting people with their sleep, because at this point I'd been able to transform that, and I felt so victorious and like a shift of, okay, if I can get through this, then, and I was starting to help other people with this at the time, and it was like this is the thing.
Yeah.
So that was a very powerful moment for someone like myself, who often we see that there's a commonality of people dealing with insomnia, not always, but enough of a kind of archetype that there's tends to be overthinking,
Yeah.
rumination, perfectionism, like may. And so to have such a resolve that this is it was a very new thing or place to stand. So today, grateful that that happened, but sometimes it takes the difficult, periods of time to get there.
Well, I mean, there is yeah, I feel like, we need to clap and cheer that moment and like, everybody around you. It's almost like, when Mufasa or when, Simba is up in the air,
Ah,
Rafiki is there and then like or Kumbaya. It's like all the
yeah.
kinds of things where you celebrate a moment in someone's life. Like that was such an epic moment for you and the shaking of the hand and
Yeah.
the dodging of the bullet, it's like so I would love to say or ask, it's like it's almost like this is like the prologue or, movies
Mm.
movies where you see the amazing victory and what life looks like after, but then later, like with Star Wars and all those things, they come out with a
Yeah.
prologue and they show you what was the making of someone. And I
Mm.
love the fact that you did I mean, that was like 7 years. Wait, says 365 days a year times 7 is 2000 and are you saying you did gratitude
Yes.
for 7 years in a row every day?
Every day.
That is
Every day.
amazing. Well, no wonder
Every
you're
day.
so great. No wonder you have like I knew you carry like a lot of positivity, but just your nature, there is so much gratitude that just you
Mm.
exude. So, well, no
Oh, well,
wonder because
well,
you
I
did that.
appreciate that because, I definitely can see so much of there can be knee jerk, like, oh, being a victim, being like, oh, this should be happening, or that, and like fighting reality. And gratitude is such the opposite of that. It's like
Yeah.
embracing reality and finding, the beauty. And I'll tell you, it's just as much as I believe sleep is a skill. I believe gratitude's a skill because,
Well,
left
right.
to our own devices, we can be pretty like,
Totally.
not the best.
Yeah, and so here's what I wanna do. I I'm just inspired by what you did before you figured out the skill of sleep because you conquered mountains before you even got to that point. So I know
Oh,
you've probably been congratulated countless times or commended on what you did before that moment, but I feel like you did so much that some would aspire to do in their lives before you even tackled what I would say now has become quite an epic purpose of yours. So so very I'm like, "Ooh, enjoying that." But then I also wanna I told you I'm gonna ask you this question. It's the theme of
yeah, I love
my
it.
podcast. It's the compromise to alchemize theme. But I
So
wanna
cool.
ask you this twice today, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
I wanna ask you as the Molly before the
Mm,
handshake moment, the
yeah.
Molly before the dodging of the bullet, the Molly before you knew there was a bullet. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the moment where you became aware of, okay, something needs to change?
Yeah.
Can we go back to before that when things
Mm-hmm.
were like beautifully intense and like rich and you were like, maybe just go smack dab in the center of your 7 years of 2000 something days of gratitude.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I wanna ask you then, Molly, I'm not saying go back in time. I'm not saying be
Yes.
who you are today,
Yes.
but I wanna ask you the personal legend question, because I feel like there's wisdom there, and then there's also the wisdom of what you learned when you learned to, your mission with sleep. But so, there's this moment, Santiago is the protagonist in The Alchemist, Paulo
Mm-hmm.
Coelho's book, where the old king, mystical king Melchizedek asks Santiago, or he sees him on a bench. Santiago is looking for to pursue his dream in life, and um, and so well, by the way, have you read the book?
I have, but ages ago.
Ages ago, right? So
Yes. So I appreciate you kind of
yeah,
doing
well, I feel
the
like it's one of
guide
those
over.
books that stand the test of time.
Yes.
It is one of the most read books,
Yeah.
next to the Bible, right? So it's
Right.
crazy. So he sells sheep. He goes to Morocco, North Africa. He goes to Tangier and he joins a glass shop and he polishes the glass for the shopkeeper and he ends up helping that shopkeeper accomplish his life dream. But then he ends up in the desert. He's on a caravan and he gets mentored by an alchemist and he ends up finding the love of his life and he ends up finding his dream, his treasure, his veritable treasure, his actual treasure,
Mm.
gold. So turning lead into gold is what alchemy is. And but literally he was taught how to do that. But there's so much more to that story. But along the way, the mystical king told Santiago, he said, because Santiago was like, what am I going to do? And the universe conspires in your favor when you are in
Mm.
pursuit of your personal legend.
Mhm.
So the universe has clearly conspired in your favor multiple
Mm.
times. So in the middle of all the gratitude and all that, what would Molly say? What would you say your personal legend? What was it at that time? What did you believe that you was your calling, your purpose, your dream, what you were put on this planet to do?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I'm glad that I'm getting the opportunity to give 2
Mhm.
answers because, um and you can let me know if this lands in alignment with how you're thinking of, The Alchemist and what have you. But I think my first chapter was
Yeah.
maybe a little less inspired, than the second chapter, and probably, future me will keep saying this too. But so it definitely and it feels like life is kind of in those two-part chapters too, and how I think of because that was very much like a line, like a divide. Um so I think before it was a very much and I think this is common for a lot of people, it's, don't become that. Like it
Mm,
was a drive of, um but you're whenever you're driven like that, you're still tethered to the thing that you're trying not to become. So for me, growing up, like I shared in a trailer, welfare, all of that, there's a lot of shame
mhm.
and like a lot of that mental health stuff, and there's alcoholism and all kinds of things, growing up. And so it was often kind of just get as far from that reality as possible. But then whenever you're doing that, you're still kind of, your nail is still in your foot of like, of you're still tethered to that thing, you know? So anything you're achieving is still from a place of like, this is not okay. So you're still connected there. You know, almost when you do like hypnosis and they have you like cut the tethering of whatever you're
Yeah.
connected to, there was still a lot of connectedness to that and feeling I needed to prove myself of I'm not the girl in the trailer anymore, but like still acting like I'm going home to the trailer. Anyway, so I think that was part of the drive. And I think that's, and fine. Many people will do that for their entire lives, and that will be great, and they'll do amazing things potentially. However, I also see that then that's kind of at the effect of life, you know, and then looking for your value externally. And I think there was a big part of me with all these ventures of like, okay, if I do something of interest, of like, you know, it proves my worth, you know, all of these sort of things. Um, versus like an inner generation, like an inner kind of alchemy, if you will. And so not to jump to the second part, but I can say that the second kind of the way I think about life is certainly different.
Yeah. We could come back to that after we explore this more, or do you feel like you really want do you do you wanna, like, jump to your now personal legend? Would that be, like, the best for you, or do you want me to ask you a
Either
few more
way.
questions? Okay, okay.
No, either way,
Alright.
either way.
Well, let's live in this moment a little bit longer. I
Yeah.
have so many questions I wanna ask because I'm just to peer into the mind of somebody who has that wisdom, but also, to explore, like, what is okay, if you could tell me, like, was there a cresting moment, like the crest of a wave moment in those 2000 some days of gratitude where you can think back to a day or a stretch of days or a moment where you were like, whoa, like was there something like that, like an aha moment of awe or moment of like you felt the steeping of all that gratitude where it hit you in a concrete way, or you journaled about something and like you hold on to that? Is there anything like time during that stretch of days where you were like euphoric or you know
Yeah.
seeing things like in a certain way? Is there any moment like that that stands out
Yeah.
to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And also to clarify too, for those 7 years, it spilled into the time with sleep and everything. So I was still having some like the
Oh
ups and the
yeah.
downs. So it
Okay.
spilled into that.
Got it.
Um, and so, which was a really interesting exercise to then be experiencing like, okay, I'm not sleeping, like I'm freaking out. And
Yeah.
then what am I grateful for? What am I, and still showing up. So
Yeah.
that was a really interesting one. And I would see how the machinery could be like, well, there's nothing to be grateful for. But there would always reliably be something to be grateful for. And
Mhm.
later down the road, um, I remember a moment when I was just, what was it? I was doing something scary. Um, what the heck was it? It was something like zip lining, but I can't remember where
Mhm.
the heck it was, but something that I was like scared about. Um, and I saw, you know, I was just more seeing my thoughts. And I saw how then just like reflexively, because it almost feels like a meditation or a mantra when you're, because you're just listing out grateful for this,
Yeah.
grateful for that, grateful. And so then I saw my thoughts start going into grateful for for this tree, grateful for this thing, like, and it just started almost like you, because I believe you can hypnotize, brainwash yourself into anything you want. And it's kind of cool that you
Yeah.
could hypnotize, brainwash yourself into gratitude. And
Right.
so why not?
Yeah,
You know, 'cause
totally.
that was a moment when I literally saw like, because I wasn't, it was there like a primal kind of thinking, you know, because I was like a little scared or whatever. And I saw that it was just like grateful for this, grateful for that. Like it was almost like my body and mind was coming back to that training almost, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like that whole idea, like Wayne Dyer has a saying back in the day, of like when if you're, you know, an orange and you squeeze you and you put like pressure on you, like what comes out? is it like orange? Is it orange
Mm.
juice, like what, you're designed to be? Or is it kind of, something else? Like, are you kind of covering up something else? And so, if you can kind of train for more, then even when pressure is put on you, then potentially gratitude could come out, could be a possibility.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's too many ways to go in this, but I really feel like there's something there about how sleep is so remarkably helpful for giving you resilience, giving you strength, giving you
Yeah.
clarity. And it's almost like if pressure is going to be there, which it is, life is a pressure, stress is a pressure, with resilience of all kinds, including sleep, what that gives you, you can handle so much more pressure and in a regulated way, in a way
Yeah.
that leads to what comes out then when you're
Yes.
squeezed.
Yes.
So,
Yes, totally.
mm, pondering your sage wisdom there, Molly, because
Oh,
this is
well, I borrowed that one from Wayne Dyer, so,
well, totally. Well, hey,
you know?
this is how you don't need to reinvent the wheel when you have sage
Y
advice from those. So
Well, thank you, I appreciate that.
so yeah, so you kind of have that even that moment that you shared and those times where you it was such a I know I've kept the gratitude journal for a long stretch, let's say at least a
Mhm.
year, but but there's something about uninterrupted for that long. There is
Yeah.
it's like an ultra endurance, it's like an ultra marathon of some
Yes.
sorts, to where
Yeah,
it
and I'll
becomes
just say what you said was beautiful because, most of the people on there were on the entire time, like, sometimes they'd meet new friends along the way 'cause, it's a
yeah.
bunch of years, but many of them were on for the entire time, and so it was cool because we saw kind of like this almost community, if you will, cropping
Mm,
up of then people would respond, with, what they're grateful for and kinda set the tone a little bit. So it was just an interesting thing, that contagion effect, stickiness effect, that then often they would, respond back. Like that would be our way of keeping in touch. And then the great thing was once I went through that whole period of kind of like rock bottom, not sleeping, stress, anxiety, all the things. Um, there was a period when I didn't think I'd ever like travel or be able to do the whole, Tim Ferriss kind of way of life, but was able to do that. And so that felt like a victory. And so that was about 3 years of traveling back and forth from New York to Southeast Asia. And so was keeping a lot of that gratitude practice going while there and get to share about, $5 US dollar massages in Thailand and just the whole other kind of experience and culture happening there and stay connected, but then from a place of what is working or what you're sharing that's potentially positive, and to keep that as the way that now you're communicating with your friends and family.
yeah, and that's powerful. So, okay, then the second part of that question to the Molly in gratitude is a skill. When your life was gratitude is a skill.
Yes.
I'm just
Yeah,
paraphrasing there.
I love that. Yeah.
To or before then, what was your personal legend? The map one, the analogy I gave you, where the double meaning or the second meaning of if your life is a map and you are pursuing this path, and at that time you were, I understand you were like, it's like you were motivated. Oh yeah, this is what I wanted to get into.
Mm,
You were motivated by what you didn't want to be,
yeah.
and so it's that electromagnetic propulsion where
Yes.
you flip a magnet and it's like it repels you, or
Yes.
you feel that magnetic direction away from something versus the
Hmm.
towards the something.
Yes.
Um so you know and I wonder if in that, like, there's a cool through line though, because rhetoric and nonverbal is kept alive through like Blake, and so it's almost like part
Yeah.
of what you started with
Yes.
that was a big part of your life and one of your entrepreneurial endeavors you is living currently in your relationship, because he's carrying that through, become very successful in like
Yeah.
what you're doing with that, what he's doing with that. So in one way it's like I can't help but think there was some motivation towards something there that is alive still in what he carries, that um even though you were propelled away from things to accomplish all the things that you
Yeah.
did, but pursuing gratitude is like a really amazing thing, as well as
Yeah.
yeah. So was there
Yeah.
something else that you felt like drove you or guided you, was your compass at that time?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can pluck components of
Sure.
what that vision is today, which still bleeds into that, but just was expressed differently, I should say.
Yeah.
So today, that kind of vision, uh, personal legend, et cetera, for me, where I stand, and it could evolve or whatever, but where I'm at right
Yeah.
now, is creating a life of freedom, peace, and self-expression.
Oh,
And so how that got expressed back then was very much almost this the self-expression piece was the utmost of importance at the time, I think. And um, so having that's why, being in corporate and not feeling aligned with, the day-to-day 9 to 5 that I was doing, felt particularly, just could not be with it. And so that idea of finding the thing that's an expression of you that you can give your life to was a huge utmost importance. And I think, and I know Blake certainly is doing that with his business. So that's been beautiful to see. And he's been such a guide for me in the piece of, kind of a sage, longtime entrepreneur.
yeah.
He's a psychology professor, background in forensics, but at the whole time, he never really had, besides the professor job, like a normal job. It was always lots of entrepreneurship. So I learned a ton from him, but yeah, that self-expression piece. Now, I think the component that was sort of, kind of that pulling away from was wanting to have almost like this female Indiana Jones style life,
Mm.
like
Wow.
always traveling, always on adventures, and like, all of that.
Yeah.
Uh, so, but I didn't quite see until a bit later in life that I think some of that was still a bit of that chasing energy, or right, like
Yeah.
discontent.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah. So I feel like there can be that. But what I'm grateful for is today, with having more of that clarity, with that vision of freedom, peace, self-expression. The big part, the difference for me is this seeing that my word is the vehicle for that. And
Mm.
what I mean by that is, you know, the building up of the muscle of being my word, like with the, gratitude every single day. So to trust myself that I'll do that every single day. My newsletter is an expression of that. So that's been almost 7 years. And that's every Monday for over 7 years. And just knowing that I'll be my word and I'll do the thing. Same with the podcast. It's been running since 2020, and just trusting that I'll do what I
Mm.
say. And particularly, I'm not saying I'm always perfect, but saying that that's a game that I want to play is building my word. So if I'm building my word, then I can have more trust in my ability to fulfill on that mission of freedom, peace, self-expression. Because then if I'm not being my word, then I'm not doing that. So, you
Yeah.
know? So I think that is the game that I'm interested in playing right now. And how I'm kind of expressing that, like the map right now is this. So if that's the overarching vision, then kind of the big current game, and games they can begin, they can end. So, you might, like you were saying, like each year, maybe you have like a new thing and whatever. So right now, the big game is really that people are awake to, and in the driver's seat of their well-being. And so that can expand in many different, tentacles of things, and it's certainly sleep is one that I believe I like hit the jackpot with, because, it's one of those that just, it touches everything. It touches all aspects of well-being and our lives. So, yeah, so that would be the overarching kind of game.
my light fell, so I'm gonna fix that real
Yeah.
quick. You saw it. It was like, oh my gosh. Totally. No, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
Yeah, you should think I have this figured out by now, but it's anyways. So
Oh, listen, usually I'm recording my podcast outside and
yeah,
the wind is blowing and like
totally. That's great.
birds
Yeah.
are chirping and crazy stuff's happening. So I feel you.
Well, I just feel like you that was thank you so much for sharing that. I thought, Molly, I was going to learn one of the most important things I would learn from you in life would be sleep. And now I realize keeping your word. Like, wow. I mean, I have, you know, there are ways that is what more important thing could there be in some ways? And so, okay, I'm a student of yours, Molly. This is the truth.
Well, listen, I think we're all students. My coach is amazing. Like her word muscle is insane.
Yeah.
And my husband is coached by her too, and some of
Oh,
my other
cool.
friends. So she just did a word boot camp recently.
Okay.
So you're
Okay.
like cracking the whip, because the idea
Yeah.
is that we can we're never going to be always able to be our word every single second of every single day if you're having a huge game to change the world or whatever, but you can always honor your word is basically the takeaway.
Yeah.
And so to
Right.
honor your word, you're always in communication and you're sharing, and if you had this game to hit X number by the end of the year and you fell short here, but you quickly got in action and you shared about it and then you restored, kind of your relationship to that. What's the new game? So all of that is an expression of honoring your word. And so for me, that is a game that I'm very excited about. And you could give your whole life to that. The Japanese are a really cool example of that. They will give the word, this is what I hear. But supposedly they give, entire apologies, like public apologies, if their train systems are like a minute late, whereas it's some of the places that we are in the United States, like, good luck. So just having a personal bar for yourself in some of those areas is, I think, an interesting way to look at life for sure.
Oh, that's such a good. Yeah. No, that's so good. Yeah. Oh, that's um I feel like you got yeah, you ran the through line there. You told me kind of your legend of before and your legend of now
Yeah.
and your your map, and there's so much to that. I mean, it feels like there's when you can I mean, yeah, especially when you carried through I love the 7 seems to be a theme too. 7 years of gratitude, 7 years of newsletter, and you're almost at 7 years of the podcast. So, right? I
I
mean,
know. No,
yeah.
well, I know. I also had a bit of a 7 years of different kind of like dramatic moments in my life. I think I told you. Then I went through a little bit of this period of like kind of like burnout, like
Yeah.
re midlife crisis. I mean, it's kind of a dramatic term, but
Right.
midlife awakening, shedding.
Yeah.
When this decided, am I going to have kids? Like that brought up all kinds of new stuff. So I do definitely seem to have this 7 year thing. Blake is like, oh, geez, I got to put in my calendar next, like,
Right.
couple of years. So Blake, watch out. But yes, the 7 year itch seems to be a bit of a theme, I guess.
Yeah, no, and I usually look at numbers as like little signposts and like
Yeah.
themes, but like you're doing, yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, I really love your what you gave as your legend in terms of like learning about you and what you're doing and what's behind sleep as a skill and what undergirds it and what carries through to things that you'll do. Um, and I gave you my super detailed, which I threw out the word, psychoneuroimmunomusicology, but
Yes.
under that, yeah, one of my deepest desires is to lend unshackling to voices, to agency,
Mm.
so that people can live and express and be free so that they can
Yes.
live the life they want to. So I'm like, expression plus um expression plus freedom are
Freedom.
two common words out of yours. So
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, well, there we go. We got some resonance on our aligned
Totally.
mission. So
Yeah,
yeah,
'cause
yeah,
I feel like that's kinda rare, like, we don't always see people fully free and
yeah,
self-expressed,
yeah.
So yes, please help the world have more of that.
Yeah,
And
and
so we can be on that mission. Let's do it.
I think it's especially relevant when, yeah, like you're clearly from at least 7 years ago, but more than that,
Mm.
you've had a microphone, proverbially and literally, right? You're given you're given a mic, and you're taking it and you're using it to help people, which is really poignant. So I feel like we need to do that, because there are others who don't have that, and
Yes.
they're helping the people around them. Some have, a mic that's got an audience that's bigger, like you have so many people that you reach, um and then there's going to be people that may not hear you, but
Mm.
they're going to hear what you've inspired, because you've helped other people, and then they can go carry on like what
Mm.
you provoked them to do. So, well, I of course I want to get to sleep is a skill.
Mm.
And I feel like, of course, your podcast is amazing. I've listened to so many episodes. I hear your mission. I love how you really delve into so many topics. And I mean, I was fortunate to be on your podcast to talk about floor of mouth and
Yes.
tongue,
Amazing.
and how
Such a
that
great
can help.
episode.
And I think we talked about light therapy. We talked about a bunch of things. But what would you say to somebody who is like, yeah, well, let's carry both polarities, the two sides
Mhm.
of the same coin. Sleep is an incredible skill of theirs, or sleep is the skill they don't know that they can ever have. This is a coin, right? It
Yeah.
takes a lot of work to go from one side of the coin to the other. Or if you find the right resources and the right people, like Molly, like you can flip
Mm.
a coin, and you can be on a path today to have better sleep
Mm.
tonight.
100%. Yes.
So you can so if you were to tell people one thing, like literally one thing to flip that coin for them from bad to good, what what's the one thing you would tell them? What's the one piece of wisdom you would share for somebody on how they can go from not knowing good sleep to having phenomenal sleep?
Mm. I would say, because there are so many kind of tentacles that can impact sleep, and there are over 100 sleep wake disorders. There's so many aspects of that, right? So I think for anyone, starting with awareness is key, because
Mhm.
it's like, it's the age old, what gets measured gets managed. But what's so unique about sleep is it's like the one thing that we do that we are truly in a different conscious state. So it's pretty tricky for us to have a fairly good gauge on what the heck is happening, you know?
Mm. Yeah.
And I see a lot of people that will be pretty shocked when they start to, on this most rudimentary, if you just even do analog and you're like, I'm not
Right.
interested in all this tracking stuff.
Sure.
But you just simply start logging. And you're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was going to bed at this time, but totally different on, this day of the week. And I didn't realize I was spending a whole extra bunch of stretch of hours. I didn't realize I was waking up and staying awake for that long a stretch of time. Oh, I didn't realize that culminated with stressful, times with my spouse or whatever, right? So we can start seeing and shifting from that to a place of kind of metacognition and
Mm.
being able to spot patterns in what's happening with our sleep. So, at its most basic, analog tracking, just to kind of get a sense of what are we even dealing with here. But then it's more advanced if it's appropriate and makes sense. Tracking with even consumer trackers. So, we do a lot with Aura Ring has been our primary kind of um, pathway for people, but also Whoop Band and, there's Garmin's, there's this, there's that. So, consumer grade tracking of some type. But then I'd also say sleep test. I am a stand that the future is one where the same way we all, have our blood pressure tested, that we would test the thing that we do a third of our lives on average 26 years are spent asleep, but we can't be bothered to do a sleep test. And especially considering these at-home tests now can be around 150 bucks or so US dollars, not to minimize, but with
Yeah.
insurance and all the things that are available, you would think that that could easily be covered at least once throughout a person's life. But ideally, because of the fact that it's very dynamic, those results that we're testing multiple times throughout their life, in the case of women, we dramatically change of our likelihood of developing certain types of sleep disorders. I know I'm preaching to the choir to you, but women can become more one to one in our likelihood of developing things like sleep apnea, upper air resistance syndrome, to that of men later in life as things shift hormonally and structurally, et cetera. But so the point is, there's a dynamic nature to some of these disorders, or most of these disorders. So to kind of keep checking in the same way we would never just do one test of your blood pressure and then have an entire, protocol, lifetime of treatment, you would check in again. You would, get a sense. Can you hear my milk carton or whatever this
Yeah,
thing
totally.
is? Milk box. I don't know what they say.
Yeah,
I don't know.
soapbox, right?
Box. That, yeah,
Yeah.
milk. I don't know. Anyway, so awareness. And now one of the cool things that I think is really fascinating with sleep is it can act as sort of this check engine light for your overall health and well-being, and that can include your physiology, your psychology. It's gonna be a lot at play environmentally, behaviorally, beyond. And so we can see, with as we're tracking some of these things, if we're starting to deviate from that more established baseline, and then start to take action accordingly. And so when we know better, we can do better. And I hope I can almost have like embedded in that one suggestion is the frame by which we're approaching all the information, which is that just trying on this idea that sleep is a skill, because a thing that can trip up a lot of people is coming into this whole game with labels. And I certainly did that. I did everything not to do with sleep for a whole stretch of time. And so I came into that game with these beliefs that, well, I come from a line of people that weren't great sleepers. My whole family is not great sleepers. I come from a background where a lot of short sleepers. Oh, well, I'm an extreme night owl. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Like labels, narratives, all of these ways of relating. And yet, what's possible is to set those aside and take on that. If sleep is simply a skill, then we're starting at whatever set point we're beginning at, and then we have this opportunity to up level. And if even, I mean, I've seen amazing athletes coming my way that are doing all the things, but we can always find certain things, not from like a neurotic standpoint, but from a Kaizen or optimization standpoint, of things that we can take on from a progress perspective of life or fulfillment perspective of life, and just simply using sleep as a bit of that, metric, if you will. So what's cool is if we do try on this idea that sleep is a skill and we want to build like our muscle with that skill set, then there's no kind of like ethics, morality, or just kind of good, bad. Then it's just simply, okay, this is an opportunity to get more information and find what's kind of in the way of me having kind of power and freedom in this area.
Yeah. So such good um encouragement, empowerment to consider it like that. I know, yeah. So those people who know me know that I do a lot, but I need to get in the gym and train sleep really a lot. So
Yes.
I'm tackling that this year.
Let's do it. Yay.
Tackling
Love
that this
that.
year. And so the confessional leads to the statement of um yeah, so then I'm going to ask you, I'm going to throw you a curveball and ask
Yes,
you a
please.
question.
Okay.
Uh if let's just say, um, we're gonna go with 7 as the number, and we'll say, I don't know when you started your podcast, but let's just assume by 2027, that's the beginning
Okay.
of next year, right?
Yes.
Sleep has been mastered. Nobody on the planet needs any help with it.
Mm.
Would you then switch your podcast to awareness is a skill? Because
Oh,
you said
yes.
the one thing, it starts with awareness. When I asked you, what's the one
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
So let's just say that question again. If we all solve sleep, thanks to Mollie Eastman and those who know you, and you solve the problem of sleep everywhere on the planet, 2027, it doesn't exist. It's
Yeah.
the skill that everybody has learned. What would you do? What do you feel your
Okay.
personal legend would create waves for you to do? Yeah, or what would you call? Would it be awareness as a skill? Just as a joke, but yeah. What would you see? Just as an
I
example.
love that. I love that. Um, I would say that I would say to the whole world that's sleeping beautifully, like, just you wait. Because not in like a negative standpoint, but from a perspective that because that happened for me. I thought, oh, I figured out this whole sleep thing. Oh my
Uh-huh.
God, I am the best sleep person ever. Meh, meh, meh. And then and then fill in the blank is always what happens.
Yeah,
Because so for me, it was that period of kind of like burnout. I was turning 40, my hormones were changing and all these different things. And then I'm like, wait a minute, now I'm having wake ups. Like, what is going on? I teach
yeah,
this. Like, hello. And so I share that because I see this every single day that if we're using sleep as this kind of lens, just simply not even because people are like, "Aren't you sick of sleep?" And it's the weird thing is that I like to think of sleep as the springboard for
right.
living a self-expressed life and a passionate life,
That's
right?
yes,
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 yes.
yes.
So what's interesting is what I tend to see is then we always have this opportunity to keep up leveling as life goes on and you take on like the next layer. You're like, my life is, I'm killing it. Okay. And then your partner dies. Okay. And then, not to put all these things out into the universe, but I'm just saying like things happen in life.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you lose the job,
Mhm.
whatever, we get older, like, our health deteriorates, something. And then it tends to show up in our sleep results. And then how do we respond and kind of generate a new frame or way of working with this? So that's one of the reasons why I love it because I just feel like for myself and for others, it's kind of never done. So I
I know.
guess I would still hold on to my sleep as a skill because it's still, but I love the maybe that could be like a season of it, of
Yeah,
awareness as a skill, gratitude
right.
as skill, all these things are skill because like that's what's so cool is if we, I guess at its core, to start to kind of button that, some of these like personal legend and all this.
Yeah.
Um, I grew up in an environment that often talked a lot about fixed ways of being,
Mhm.
and I saw that and really had concerns around that as compared to a growth mindset. And I would see myself fall right in, well, I'm just this way and blah blah blah. And yet what could be possible when we take on a growth mindset with our the way we're structuring our lives, like the art of fulfillment, the art of are we kind of course correcting and changing the old way that we're doing things maybe is no longer fulfilling, now we need a new game. So anyway, all that to say that I think it's a nightly check and balance of seeing, are we living our lives, kind of on purpose and forward momentum, and or do we need to kind of course correct? And that's what I decided to do a little bit ago. It was kind of like change up things with my business and how I was managing things, and I have sleep to thank for that because it started like basically showing me, okay, those symptoms are letting me know that I'm kind of off track, and so to come back to it.
Yeah. Well, I like the way that you frame that up, and I know that I can't help it. There's a couple of reasons I was thinking of this song by Owl City, maybe because you said Night Owl, that was
Oh
your,
yeah.
the Night Owl Fireflies, right? And there's a line in the song that says, "Planet Earth turns slowly," and it's like a simple phrase, um, but it's like, there's the rising and setting of the sun. Inevitably, as human beings, this is part of our daily rhythm. And
Mm.
with rhythms, if we have something that serves as the line of demarcation and a delineation and a portal and chamber and a transformational existence that we can have, like sleep is serves as all these things, um, then hands down, it's going to allow us, if we focus on that, which you are, that's always going to be required and needed on the
Yes.
planet. I knew that you're not saying this is your end goal. You're
Yeah.
saying it's simply a very important life skill in order to promote those desires that you have in your life, like in your example of from freedom and peace and
Yes.
expression and those things.
Yeah.
So I can't help but think, like I told you, like one of my personal legends is to see others come into their legend. Well, I
Mhm.
can't help but think that yours is the same, because sleep is a
Yes.
skill that allows somebody to come into their calling, their destiny, their life purpose. So you are helping many people live their legends.
Oh.
And that is definitely a through line where I see that you're allowing people to become awakened to what they really have the ability to do and what they may feel like they weren't able to do, especially as somebody like you who came from realizing that things were so rough. And then now you get to help bring, like, that's remarkable skill to others. And I know if you were really to if you said sleep is the skill, then then we'd be
Then
like, okay.
totally. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, there's a little bit more to life, lady.
There is a little bit more, like, oh, but no,
Yes.
yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. So, well, I know that we're coming close to our end here. So,
Yeah.
this was such a good time. I enjoyed the conversation and I appreciate you sharing wisdom. Is there anything you want to share with our people about things that you're doing coming up, and how they'll have this links in the show notes and all that, but how they can find you and learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, one, I just want to thank you. I mean, this is the most insightful or kind of reflective and just interesting podcast I've done in a while.
Mhm.
So thanks for creating that and just being so just facilitating a forum like this. It's really
Mhm.
amazing. And it's such an expression of exactly what your kind of mission on this planet is. So I really feel that. And I also appreciate that reflection that it sounds like we have kind of similar components there, because I think you said that really well, and that has me very grateful. So thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So having said that, um, yeah, my mission on the planet is to support people with their sleep, so that, to your point, like um how you kind of helped frame it, that they can fulfill on having this great life and not be stopped by certain things every single day, every single night, and so from that place, lots of different ways to do that, no matter where people are at, is the intention. So if you go to sleepisaskill.com, then lots of free things, easy actions you can take. We have a sleep assessment, so that will give you information right away on different things that you can do to move the needle based on what you're dealing with. And then we've also got other free things. So we've got the newsletter I was chatting about,
Yeah.
and I love communicating with people on that. I respond to every single email, even if it does take me a second. I will eventually get back. At least as of right now, how things are set up. So there's the newsletter, and then there's the podcast, which you are amazing guests. So definitely, if anyone's listening, check out that episode first and foremost. And then other episodes based on what you might be dealing with your sleep. And then if you're looking for more support, then we have different one-on-one packages. We've run different cohorts, although we're kind of shifting. There's going to be some new offerings coming up around the kind of a new hybrid model of that, but that will be both kind of course format and accountability. So stay tuned. And then we also do wearable audits. So particularly, especially Aura Ring audits. We do some Whoop, but largely Aura Ring audits. And then we can facilitate if people are like, I do not track, I'm not interested. We can do generalized sleep audits as well. So all different angles in at ways that you can start getting in action and hopefully shifting your relationship to your sleep.
Yeah, thank you. That is phenomenal. Well, for sure, I'm so excited to see what people think of our conversation. So yeah, anybody listening and or watching, just throw us a comment. Share with us what you really valued out of our conversation. Of course, stay tuned, and you want to go check out Mollie's info. If you don't, so many people already know you and what
Yeah.
you do. So those of you that just happen to not know, yeah, check out Mollie's website, all the things that she mentioned. And then, yeah, for us, I can't wait for our next time of connecting, collaborating,
No.
whatever we might do. So,
Yes,
yeah, thanks so
please.
much.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if you find yourself over here in Austin anytime soon, please let me know. We'll have to connect and vice versa on the next California trip. And you're in the most beautiful spot basically there is. So
Yeah.
yes, so
Yeah,
amazing.
absolutely. Thank you for being on Compromise to Alchemized. Thank you for listening to the Compromise to Alchemized podcast. Really excited to thank Jessica from Lunalux for the music, this track called Major. I want to thank Toshi, who originally did the design work for my cover art. And then I also want to thank Alyssa from my team for podcast publishing, and my whole team, including Kat, for heading up my world. And then also definitely want you all to follow me on YouTube, follow the podcast on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcast. Comment, give us a rating, and also follow me on Instagram at Dr. Neil Bulchandani so you can stay tuned to my latest. Thanks so much, and you have an amazing day.
This is major.